Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let me start with a small prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Hello everyone. Very warm good evening to one and all. And this is Nitin Sridhar, Chief Curator of Advaita Academy. And very happy to invite you to all to yet another session being organized by us. Today we are doing a very special session. This is a memorial talk, Sri P.V. Shivarama Dikshitar Centenary Memorial Talk that Advaita Academy is very happy to support and collaborate with Sri P.S. Ramanathanji and Sri P.S. Somashekaranji, who are organizing this in the memory of their father, Sri P.V. Shivarama Dikshitarji. And this will be a series of memorial talks. And in today's talk, will be delivered by Srimati Rama Sivaramanji on the topic Bursting the myth that Vedanta is a post-retirement hobby. So, and Advaita Academy is very happy to be associated with this initiative. And I congratulate P.S. Ramanathanji and his brother for conceptualizing this memorial talk in memory of their father. So, with this very brief remarks, I now request Ramanathanji to take over the reins to speak about his father, to introduce the speaker and take it from here. Please go ahead, sir.
Good evening to everyone. I welcome you all. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this evening session by a talk on bursting the myth of Vedantic retirement hobby by Rama Sivaraman. Actually, I have known Vedanta Academy for a long time, that they have been very actively involved in promoting and making the Vedantic subject to a larger audience across the globe. They bring very eminent speakers, and in fact, there are many speakers whom they have introduced. I have come to know them very first time whenever I listen to them, and such a very erudite scholars, I can say, whenever I hear. So I must congratulate Nitin and Manoj and his team for really doing this great service to the Vedantic community. Again, coming to this special talk which I have organized, I requested Mr. Nitin to facilitate this talk to the academy so that there are larger audience who can be benefited by such efforts. My father hails from a traditional family. It's a Vedic family, right from generations. Until my father, they have studied Vedantic and Vedic and Sanskrit studies. My father did his Vedic studies although he started under his father. In order to specialize in Sanskrit studies, he moved to Tirupati, where he had the facility to do both Vedic and Sanskrit studies. So after completing his Vedic studies and a bit of Sanskrit studies, he moved to Madras Sanskrit College, Mylapore, for his further studies in Sanskrit. He did his Vedantic ceremony, as they call it, and he is a gold medalist. And then he joined the same college and finally retired as principal college. He has been associated with very many institutions, and he has done a lot of publications and done a lot of research works, etc. So we thought, instead of doing a commercial way of celebration, we felt bringing the knowledge to the people through good speakers and learned speakers is a better way to pay great tribute to his and homage to him. So in that process, we felt that Vedanta Academy is a right platform for this, so that there are more people who will be benefited by such efforts. So I again thank Nitin and Manoj and the team for facilitating this talk. Then coming to Rama Sivaraman, the background is already given in the material which she circulated, and she is a very accomplished person. She has been an engineering graduate and an MBA graduate, and she has headed a very large organization in India until that was taken over by another group. and currently she is heading a startup industry based in New York, US. Apart from her academic other pursuits, we must congratulate her. She has taken the Vedantic studies in equal force, and she has last 2 decades has been studying very intensely all Vedantic subjects, especially under the great master guru like Swami Paramarthanandaji. So it was a great occasion for us to listen to her, and we are really blessed that she has accepted our request, and she's going to deliver this talk on our behalf and on behalf of the Vedantic Academy. Actually, I have not known her before, excepting that my friend, Mr. Raviji, who is based in Singapore, who is again a disciple of Swami Paramarthanandaji for the last 2 decades, he introduced her to me. And in fact, Ravi spoke initially for a Singapore audience. Then for this, he felt that Rama Sivaraman is the best speaker that she can do very good justice for our requirement. And through his introduction, we got in touch with Rama Sivaraman, who has kindly accepted our request. So I must thank Mr. Raviji also for. Raviji himself is a great speaker, and he has more 200 students. And he has been teaching last few years in Singapore across, and also in other countries through Skype. So I thank him for introducing Rama Sivaraman to us. So this, I hope this is the first talk we have organized, and there will be many more. Every month we'll planning to have a series of talks, and hopefully you'll all be benefited by such eminent speakers' lectures. And today, what happens is there are a lot of youngsters who take interest in Vedantic studies. They are, although they are into different disciplines, like from doctors, engineers, and chartered accountants, etc., they all take Vedantic studies in a very serious manner. Some are into near full time, some are into part time. Some still like to listen to lectures like this, who cannot take the studies seriously. They like lectures and they get involved into understanding the philosophy and the Vedantic knowledge. So with this, I wish to I request Rama Sivaraman to take over and give a talk. Thank you all for joining us. Again, I thank Nitin, Manoj, and the team, and Rama Sivaraman for all accepting our request and accommodating this lecture. Thank you all.
Nitinji, I hope you're able to see my.
Yes, Ramaji, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me on this esteemed platform. Thanks to Nitin Sridhar as well as Ramanathan sir, who reached out to me and who's given me this opportunity. So let me start the talk at the earliest. I'm hoping to speak for about 1 hour and 1 hour 15 minutes maybe. I will try and make it as interesting as possible because I know the audience is slightly varied, but I think with an open mind, if we listen, we would all greatly benefit. So moving on. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Oh. Now, as I was preparing for this lecture, I was thinking about our acharyas who in the traditional way have always thought about what they referred as Anubandha Chatushtayam, which means they looked at, for every composition that they created, they made sure that they were clear about what was the subject matter that they were going to present, the target audience, the benefit, and the relationship itself, right? So they were very, very particular about making sure that this was taken care of when they were discussing the any composition. So with that in mind, I thought it's important for me to at least think about the audience here. So the audience here are obviously people who have commenced their spiritual journey, people who are religious but have no exposure to what Vedanta really covers. Others who have been my fellow students along with me with Swami Paramarthanandaji, they are also here. My namaskarams to them, and of course other stalwarts who already understand the subject. This talk is definitely not for people who do not have belief in the Shastra or Ishvara. So I just wanted to make that clear. So let me start with a story which Swami Paramarthanandaji narrates so well, and I'm going to just try to do some justice. And this, I understand, Swami Chinmayananda used to use regularly, and it is very often quoted. Right? The story goes like this. There was a unique kingdom, right, which had a very unique rule. And the rule was anyone can become the king of that kingdom. Okay. So they were assisted by their officers, their prime minister, right? There was a constitution, and the king, anybody could become the king. But the rule was that he will discharge his duties and enjoy all the privileges of a king for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, he would be escorted in a boat to the other side of the lake or the river. And then he would be let off there. And on the other side, there was a huge forest with deadly wild animals, right? So 5 years, the king could enjoy the kingdom. And then he had to go that side and never to return, right? So what happened was that while many of them became kings, many of them, of course, didn't even want to be the king, but many of them became the king. And on the last day when they were going, or even before that, say last 1 year, they would be extremely worried about this last day, and they would get so bothered and worked up that they would never sleep the nights. And finally, on the day when the boatman comes to, take them to the other side, they would make a hue and cry saying, give me 1 more day, give me 2 more days. No, you shouldn't do this to me, etc. But what happened was, while this was happening, king after king, and everybody was used to it, there was one occasion when a person became a king. And for 5 years, he ruled that kingdom. And when the last day came, he was absolutely cool. The entire year also, he was quite okay. He just got into the boat and wished everybody bye with a nice smile. And then he got into the boat, and then the boatman couldn't contain his curiosity. So the boatman asked him, how come you are not at all doing what all the others did? What is it that, is so different in you? Then the boatman said, the king said to the boatman, in the 5 years that I was the king, I had everything under my control. So in fact, just look around, turn behind and see the grand welcome party that's awaiting me on the other side of the river. They are waiting to invite me as their king. And I've already created a constitution. I have my ministers in place. The forest has been cleared. There are beautiful roads, beautiful palaces, etc. Now, this particular story is very, very important when I start to make some certain comparisons. The intelligence is basically, while enjoying the present kingdom, preparing for the future. Now, every human being is like a king, right, of that kingdom. The human being is given a kingdom called Yauvana Samrajyam, the youth, right? So the kingdom of youth. And at that time, the person has physical fitness, everything, all faculties are at our disposal. We can thoroughly enjoy, we can do whatever we want. But the rule of that Yauvana Samrajyam is only for some time, right? And then comes the forest, which is the Vardhakyavanam, or the old age, right? Which is going to be full of degenerative diseases, etc. Now, we've all got a choice, right? We can be like the unintelligent kings of the kingdom, or we can be like the intelligent king of the story, right? So while we enjoy the youth, we can start getting prepared, right, for the future. Right? That is what the story says, right? So Vairagya Shatakam, in fact, is Bhartrhari's very famous work. It is said there, right? Bhartrhari says, Yavat swastamidam shariram arujam yavat jara durato yavat chendriya shaktira pratihata yavat shayo nayushaha. Atmashreyasi tavadeva vidusha karya prayatno mahan sandipte bhavanetu kupakananam pratyudyama kidrishaha. As long as this body is healthy, free from diseases and old age, right? And we've not lost the vigor, right? Then the wise ones make great efforts to reach the supreme goal of life. What is the use of digging a well when there is a fire, right? That's the important message that Bhartrihari wants to give, right? Aligning to this story that we just saw. In Gita, Krishna says, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmada pariharyete natvam shoshitum arpasi. I'm not getting into the details of this Gita shloka, right? It is highly philosophical, but just want to alert you to this word, apariharyaha. Apariharyaha means Krishna says, very important word he uses, helpless or inevitable situations. Every living being in general and every human being in particular will confront certain situations which are unavoidable and unremediable, right? That is apariharya. And we do not say that all situations are choiceless. Even during young age, we do have some helpless situations, but they are lesser and sometimes we're able to manage. But as one grows older and older, as our relationships, increase and we have more and more issues with our body, etc., right? Some of them become helpless or inevitable, right? Many things that we took for granted, right? Even like climbing steps, what we did so freely in our young age, even that becomes so difficult, right? So if we have to go through all this with calmness, cheerfulness, and confidence, we need to definitely prepare, right? Now, what should this preparation be, right? The only intelligent thing that is under my control is empowering the mind and charging the mind to confront such difficult situations. So Krishna says, Matras parshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agama payino nityaha tam titikshasva bharata. Titiksha or endurance is a very, very important attribute that or characteristic that we develop in our young age, right? Very, very important. So with this in mind, let's enter into the topic itself. Now, generally, when we say staying fit, right, what do we mean? Right? A person who is not exposed to any of these scriptures. So we always think, right, that it is maybe, going to the gym, getting some exercise. And I also started wondering whether I would ever have a talk breaking the myth. Gym is not a post-retirement pastime. I would never do that, right? But I'm here speaking about Vedanta that way because there is no exposure to what Vedanta can do to our lives while we are young, right? And we are confronting a lot of situations. So staying fit in our normal parlance, we think, okay, it's doing exercise daily, eating the right food and portions, watching the weight, right? Monitoring calorie intake, getting enough sleep. Yes, some people think about that. And yes, staying motivated. That also very few people actually consider that is part of staying fit, right? So, and what does staying fit address? We are conditioned to think of ourselves as the anatomy and physiology of the body. This gross body, the stula shariram that we see, our legs, our hands, our face, which we are able to discern and see. We think, right, that is what staying fit addresses. Certain people who are little more subtle, right, they would maybe consider the mind as also as part of staying fit, right? So now Shastra says we are not the physical body, right? Karma Kanda itself says that we are not the physical body. It is not just the physical body that we see, but the Jiva is defined in our Vedas as Stula Shariram, the part that we physically see, Sukshma Shariram, which we are able to discern, but we are not able to see. That means what? Our sensory power, our seeing power, our hearing power, our mind, right? All emotions, all of them form Sukshma Shariram. That is also a form of body. We call it Sukshma Shariram, our subtle body. And of course, I cannot get into the details of the causal body in this session, but there is something where you can imagine that it's like the seed, right, of a tree. So that is Karana Sharidam. And the consciousness, right? This body is conscious today. Although the entire body is made up of just chemical elements, it is conscious and we are able to feel that conscience in us. So that is referred to as the Chidabhasa. Right? Now, in Kathopanishad, Yamadharmaraja tells Nachiketas, right, that what is the journey and what all constitutes this journey and what is the chariot in this and how to compare them. He actually compares every aspect of what I just mentioned to the chariot itself. Let's quickly go over it, right? So the Upanishad says, right, that the Jivatma is the master, right? And the definition of Jivatma is what we saw just now. The Stula Sukshma Sharira Chidabhasa, that's the Jivatma. He alone travels from one loka to another loka, right? Not only just one, this journey of this Janma, but actually multiple Janmas and multiple lokas. When we have Shraddha in Vedas, Veda tells us that there are so many lokas, right? And the journey comprises of all the lokas, and it is not just this life that we see, right? And the chariot for the Jivatma is the Stula Shariram, right? Or the body, right? And that the physical body is the chariot. And the Upanishad says the sense organs are the horses, right? So the sense organs are the horses because you want to use the sense organs for various purposes, and therefore the sense organs can function only when the body is there, right? Otherwise the sense organs cannot function. And the intellect is the charioteer. Who decides the travel? The charioteer decides, right? So the intellect must be in control of the horses, right? The sense organs, right? Now, if you notice, there is a very important aspect called the reins, right? Which is nothing but the mind, right? So our mind has to be absolutely fit and in perfect condition so that when the intellect, the charioteer, is driving the charioteer, he has a complete control on these horses, which are the sense organs, through the mind. So the mind becomes very, very important. And you would have experienced that. For instance, I'm just watching, or one of you is listening to me. You are watching the screen. If the mind is not behind, right, the sense organs, namely the hearing power or the ears, you will be here, but you will not hear, right? Because the mind needs to be behind the sense organs, right? So, and the sensory fields are the roads, right? And the goal itself is the destination, right? So wherever you want to reach in this Janma or in any Janma for that matter, what is your goal, right? So now, what does staying fit mean? Our staying fit definition, if we understand the Vedas and we have come this far, we would at least start beginning to appreciate that what we thought of anatomy and physiology as staying fit is not what staying fit is. It is body, sense organs, mind, intellect, and all of them have to work together as a team, right? That is a very big shift, right? Now, the lifespan itself is no longer the 100 years. It goes to multiple janmas, right? The janmas can be any one of the species. It can be from any one of the jiva varieties in the millions of species, and it can be in any of the 14 lokas, right? Now, knowledge of this aspect during the younger ages throws open a very vast expanse of hitherto unknown aspects, right? That is the important aspect here. If we don't even know this, we are completely blind to a lot of things which are, an opportunity that we have lost out, right? Now, extremely rare is the human janma, right? Why is it so? In Mahabharata, in Shanti Parva, Bhishma says, right? Please check this source because we've not been able to locate the exact number. Mahata punya panyena kriteyam kayanostwaya param dukkoda dergantum tara yavanna vidyate. Bhishma says, actually, the human body has been bought by you from God by paying tons of punyam. Punya panyena kriteyam, right? And the body gets dilapidated and destroyed. So he says, better make use of the body. For what? To attain the highest goal, right? And how? The boat, the body, kaya naustvaya, the body boat, you better use before the boat disintegrates to cross the ocean of samsara, right? And why is the human janma very, very important? Why can't we, be any other janma and also manage the same goal that we want to achieve? Very clearly, one of the Hitopadesha shlokas says, Ahara nidra bhayamaitunancha samanya metat pashubhir narana buddhirhi desham adhiko visheshaha buddhya vihinaha pashubhis samanaha. The Hitopadesha verse says, animals also sleep, animals also eat, animals also breed, they have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. The differentiating factor is buddhi or intellect, the thinking faculty, the judging faculty, the planning for the future, the rational faculty, right? So the intellect should be used for what, right? Like we saw in the chariot example, the intellect which results in a free will, we must make use of it in taking conscious decisions. And intellect decides how to balance the different goals in life. Now, Shastra itself has done the job of classifying all the goals that a human personality can go after into 4, right? It's called the Purusharthas. Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha, right? Now, Artha, Kama, and Dharma, our Shastra says, no problem. You go after wealth, you do need to take care of your family, you need to take care of your security needs, your future investments, all of that. And Kama is slightly higher order desires, like you want to go on a trip abroad, you want to enjoy, in a 5-star hotel, any of these, any desires which are beyond your normal basic needs, right? And Dharma is the wonderful Purushartha, which is very unique only to Hinduism, because we believe in Papa Punyam. Vedas, the Shraddha in Vedas makes us, aware of something called Punyam. So while we are in this life, when we are leading a life here, other than Artha and Kama, we would make sure that we get more Punyam. Why? Because even to have a human Janma, we just now saw that we need Punya to get the Manushya Janma itself. And the 4th goal, which is freedom from slavery with regard to the first 3, is called moksha. Why do you need freedom from slavery with respect to the first 3? Because all 3 they never completely satisfy you. Never-ending desires, right? Atrupti karatvam, right? You can never have full trupti with that. And it will come and go, right? So it is very fleeting in nature. So we need to make sure we grow out of that and attain moksha, which is nothing but freedom from slavery with regard to the first 3, right? In this janma itself, when you are a manushya, right? Now, in Viveka Chudamani, Shankaracharya points this out. Durlabham trayame vaitat daivanugraha hetukam manushyatvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshrayaha. How accurately he has pointed out that these 3 are very hard to come by. They come by only with God's grace. The human birth, which I just told you, how much of punyam you need to take a human birth. The desire for liberation, the mumukshutvam, and the company, even if you have mumukshutvam, right? The company to get the right satsanga, the guru, the satsanga leads to a right guru. That is very, very rare, right? Very hard to come by. So with this, let me get into what is the infrastructure that is being provided by the Shastras for a human being to embark on this journey. And briefly, what do I mean by this journey itself, right? So the infrastructure, in very brief, is that there is a big Shastram repository that is available for us, right? Which Bhagavan himself has given in the form of Shruti and various other aspects, other layers which are based on Shruti, which is the sutras, the Smriti, Itihasa, Purana, the Bhashyas written on the Shruti itself. So much of layers which explain what is there in the Vedas and how do you proceed on a spiritual journey. Everything is covered. And we must note that it has Veda Purva Bhaga and Veda Anta Bhaga, and it caters to all the 4 Purusharthas. While Veda Purva Bhaga caters to the first 3 Purusharthas, Veda Anta Bhaga caters to the Moksha Purushartha. And then we also have a beautiful Ashrama Vyavastha, right? Where we have Brahmacharya Ashrama, then we have Grihastha Ashrama, Vanaprastha Ashrama, and Sannyasa Ashrama. And if you see, each of these ashramas give us an opportunity, right, to focus on one or more aspects of what the Shastra wants us to do in a lifetime. So Grihastha Ashrama is Karma Yoga Pradhana, right? I will briefly touch upon what are the 3 different yogas and what do they cover. And Vanaprastha Ashrama, which is the Upasana Yoga Pradhana, and Sannyasa Ashrama, which is the Jnana Yoga Pradhana, right? Now, yoga itself means a means by which to reach the goal. Which goal? Any of the 3 goals, right? Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha, right? So, the 3 levels of sadhana or sadhanam are Karma Yoga, right? Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. We will come to Bhakti Yoga, and it is not that you can use any of these 3 to reach moksha, because this is a very big misconception. You cannot just follow one of them and reach. Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga are both preparatory disciplines, and Jnana Yoga is where you will acquire the knowledge. We'll quickly see a little bit of each one of these, right? And these are not alternatives, right? And they have to be undertaken one by one. So Karma Yoga is proper action with proper attitude, right? Now, any of the actions that we do, whether it is religious or whether it is secular actions that we do in office or on the home front, right? It can always be split into 3 aspects. Uttama Karma, which has maximum spiritual influence. Madhyama is mediocre, it doesn't push you down, right? And Adama, which is, if you do those kind of actions, you will definitely have spiritual retrogression or you will go backwards, right? So based on the action and the intent itself, it can be Uttama Karma, Madhyama Karma, as well as Adhama Karma, which can cause you to go back spiritually, which means you can have a very bad Janma later on. And we don't want to do that. As human beings, we want to make sure that at the minimum, we are able to stay as human beings without falling, right? So, and Swamiji actually presents Karma Yoga very simply in a nutshell under the category right? R is reducing all adharmic actions gradually. Basically, thinking and living a life. Once you have exposure to the scriptures, just leading an alert life as to whether we can avoid adharmic actions, then can we increase dharmic activities? What do I mean by that? I'll come to it in a minute. D is dedicating all the activities as a worship to the God, what we refer to as Ishwararpana Bhavaha, and experiencing the future as it unfolds as my own karma palam, as a prasada coming from the Lord. And I don't judge the karma palam as success or failure, because I only react when I treat it as a success or failure. Now, when I say increasing dharmic activities, I'm referring to what Swamiji often refers as Pancha Mahayajna, also talked about in the Upanishads, right? And very briefly, they are in 5 different forms, right? Deva Yajna, which is daily puja, prayers, right? But you don't seek any personal favor, right? So without any selfish motivation, doing that is Deva Yajna. Pitra Yajna is reverential contribution to our forefathers, etc., right? And also the elders, and also doing all the Pitra Karyams after the person's passing away. And Brahma Yajna is involving contribution and promotion of all the Hindu scriptures, the Shastras, Vedas, etc., directly or through somebody else, or contributing to Veda Pathashalas, etc. And then Manusha Yajna which we all, quite a lot of us do, which is contributing to fellow human beings and supporting the society, right? And Bhuta Yajna is service to animals, environments, bird, plants, etc. And in our traditional, way in which we've been brought up, we used to make sure that we keep, rice for the crows in the morning. We used to use rice powder to put the columns outside the house. We were taught to do all this from a very young age, right? So Pancha Mahayajna is what we refer to as the I in the ride, which is increasing of dharmic activities. And when we do this, attitude is very, very important, because we have to understand that our effort is only one factor, and there is another factor, which is the law of karma, which is working on us. If you're interested, we can always learn about law of karma. I don't have the time to get into it here. So the invisible prarabdha also works, but just accepting that I can put in my effort, and then I dedicate that to the Lord, Ishwararpanam, and then I reverentially accept the result as the Ishwara Prasada. Right? So that was Karma Yoga. And in Upasana Yoga, we have various kinds of meditation. Krishna talks about it in chapter 6 of Dhyana Yoga, right? Which is Gita, Dhyana Yoga chapter. He elaborately talks and what is the benefit of each of these relaxation meditation, concentration meditation can even help children, because we take some, shloka like Shiva Manasa shloka, and for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we are doing a mental puja. So you're concentrating, right? Without this multitasking, which is so frequently done in organizations today. For a change, in concentration meditation, you're forced to sit in a place and think about one particular Ishta Devata and do some puja or japa, etc. Expansion meditation is, of course, to expand the mind in terms of thinking about the entire, nature, etc. And value meditation is in order to promote or, look at one aspect. Suppose we have too much anger, then we focus on the opposite of that, which is patience, right? And then we try to inculcate that, and we try to give a sankalpa, which means a strong command to the mind, so that, the whole day the mind will remember that, I must avoid this, etc. Right? You have to be calmer, etc. And then Jnana Yoga is nothing but the study of scriptures, clearing the doubts, and also meditating on that, right? So that is Jnana Yoga. Now, Bhakti is in and through all the yogas, right? And it is all soaked, right? All the 3 yogas are soaked in Bhakti, because you cannot do any of these yogas without God involved in it, right? So basically, whatever I do, yat karoshi, yadashnasi, juhoshi, tadasi, yat, whatever I do, right? All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, you submit it as an offering unto the Lord. So Bhakti is there in and through all the yogas, right? And there is a very important aspect of Ishvara also in our scriptures, right? And there is a gradual shift in understanding from thinking that God creates the world. As a child, you think God is sitting behind the clouds and, is trying to create the world. And that's how we are taught, right? There is one Ishvara, right? Eka Ishvara, some God, either, Devi or Vishnu, who creates the world. And then after that, slowly, when we get exposed to Upanishad, we say, oh, Jagat Karanam Ishvara, just like the spider weaves a web from itself, God also creates the world from himself, right? That's how we believe. Then we come to the stage where, no, I don't think God does any of these. God just appears as the world, exactly like a person has a dream, right? So exactly like that. So with maturity, our own concept and understanding of God changes, right? And how does a seeker gradually shift during the spiritual journey? This is the spiritual journey, whatever I've talked about now, right? How does that happen, right? So initially the bhakti is manda bhakti and eka rupa devata. From there, we realize that, oh, this is not correct, manda bhakti. We should move on from here. So we start, looking at karma yoga, upasana yoga, right? And then we look at, oh, okay, we should not look at God to give me something. Instead, we should look at God as an end goal in itself, right? God as an end goal. And then we move to, oh no, now we realize that we have exposure to Upanishad and Shastras. We should not say that, oh, I will only go to Vishnu temple, I'll not go to Shiva temple, etc. Everything in this world, in this nature is, God, Aneka Rupa Ishvara. And then in my Upasana also, I start expanding my mind. And then finally, after the good amount of exposure to Jnana Yoga, I move on to Uttama Rupa Bhavana, that is God as self, right? Which is the extremely mature way of looking at God, right? And then Arupa Ishvara, which I just talked about, right? So finally, as a jnani, a person still is in society doing karma yoga and upasana yoga, but without any anxiety of the kind of result that is going to come. He just does his work and leads a very, very peaceful life with equanimity. So this is the spiritual journey, right, of typically any sadhaka. Now, I just wanted my talk is to give you this introduction and then say that, okay, while we do all this, what happens? For those of you who are interested in more on where to find this, it's all there in the Gita. Gita chapter 12 has the gradual, the progression of this bhakti, etc. You can take a look at it. Now, what is it that I wanted to speak about is, having given you a background of, oh, this is the spiritual journey that one undertakes, what is happening during this journey and why does it become so critical and important for us to get exposed to this early on in life? That was my point, and I wanted to touch upon certain aspects which can be appreciated by the general people, and you can actually take it forward and talk to others also in whatever way you deem fit. So, as Swamiji puts it, we generally deal with Pancha Anatma. He uses this term Pancha Anatma. Suppose there is a human being, he or she deals with the body, that is the body of that person, the mind of that person, the family members, right? And then the possessions, the wealth that that person actually has, and the profession itself, right? The profession is a very significant part of one's life. So these are broad classifications of where all this person in question is dealing with, right? So here the person I'm indicating is, here it is body, mind, family, possessions and professions. Now, during the journey, one learns to shift from blaming each one of these for our unhappiness to start looking internally and create the emotional insurance required to face any upheavals which can happen in any of these 5 areas. Okay. So I have generally grouped the benefits that we will get into these 5 categories. Okay. So the first one is a life of discipline. I talked about all these yogas, right? So what happens is, first and foremost, I thought very important to talk about ahara or food, which is an external aspect and very important aspect. Now, Gita talks so much about sattvika ahara, rajasika ahara, tamasa ahara, and it talks about what kind of food is suitable for a sattvika life. What does sattvika life mean? A life where the mind is prepared to assimilate knowledge, right? Now, ayush sattva balarogya sukha priti vivardanaha rasyaha snigdaha stirahridyaha aharaha sattvika priyaha. It says, what kind of foods will increase longevity, mental strength, right? Health, comfort. They are delicious, but not dry. They are nourishing and pleasing, right? So that is what is sattvika ahara. So there's a lot discussed here, right? But the point I wanted to make is, there is so much of thought into what we need to eat. And then it also talks about the importance of fasting, right? And why Ekadashi fasting is important. right? What do we do on Dwadashi day? What kind of food do we eat, right? These are all there in the scriptures. But once you undertake these kind of, fasting, etc., right, then, the whole approach changes, right? Because it is reverential in nature. And also our attitude towards food. In the 15th chapter, Lord Krishna says in Gita, Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashritaha Prana Pana Samayuktaha Pachamyannam Chaturvitam. I am in the body as Vaishvanara, right? Vaishvanara Agni. And when you think of it, this Vaishvanara Agni, we treat it as reverence and we treat the eating itself as a yajna. So we don't overeat, we don't say this food is bad, etc. So the attitude towards food, the attitude towards, all the time talking about varieties of food and what is more, it should be more pungent, it should have little more salt. That attitude, there will be a shift, a gradual shift. And also the other thing is, why do we start looking at it reverentially? Look at even scientifically, this acid can actually burn paper when you put it out. But it doesn't burn the stomach lining because there is a special lining there. And when there is a bacteria, which is also another jiva, is causing a problem with it, which is H. pylori, then you have an issue with the ulcers coming, right? So Vaishvanara Agni was treated with such great reverence, right? And it's there in the 15th chapter. And also if you see, the Subhashitams, those used to be there, they used to support these, right? So if you see this, Puraye Dashanena Ardham, Tritiyam Udakenatu, Vayu Sancharanarthaya, Chaturtam Avasheshaya. Fill half with solid food, third quarter, right, with water, and leave 1/4 quarter, that is a quarter empty, so that, there can be the Vayu circulation and our food can get digested. Look at how much thought. So this is a direct benefit, right? And I think if we can get it in the early ages, we will be much better off. We can start practicing these. The second one I wanted to, focus your attention on is religious yajna. The rituals listed in the Karma Kanda, right? Karma Kanda portion yajnas, which form the Deva Yajna, right? Which I just briefly mentioned. That also inculcates discipline, right? I'm going to show you a set of slides and think about what you think they are, okay? They are in a sequence, right? This is the first one. I'm sure many of you have already guessed what I'm doing here. Just observe which parts of the body are all getting impacted. So now, by now you would have guessed, this is the full sequence. This is done 12 times. So this is the Surya Namaskara. Now it takes care of breathing. So many body postures which are required for us to remain flexible. And it is done at sunrise. So it takes care of ozone, as well as it makes us get into the routine, going to bed on time, waking up on time, right? The breathing itself helps keeping our lungs fit, right? And another important aspect is in yoga, like in exercise, you actually cannot listen to music and do the yoga. Why? Because in yoga, we are asked to focus on our exhalation and inhalation with the full mind as we go through the steps. And that's why we talk of mindfulness, etc., right? So in this world where we are constantly running around during the day, right? In the morning, if we are able to spend this time focusing on not only the body, the breathing, right? And of course, the prayers, the Reva Yajna, it's a very nice way of doing things. Now, this is just one example of one sample Deva Yajna. There are so many things in our scriptures, right? So the important aspect is, as we do these rituals, the body also gets, into a habit, a disciplined habit, right? So it becomes very, very critical for us to understand and appreciate the importance of Deva Yajna, right? I'm just picking up some samples here. Then the third is Dhanam, right? Now, if you take Dhanam, right? Now, so much is talked about in terms of discipline and charity, right? It is considered very important from several angles. First, as the infrastructure which is provided to us, it is our duty to take care and protect the infrastructure, right? And as children, we benefited from parents, right? Then we benefited from teachers. We're benefiting from the Vedas, right? So we don't want to be what they call rini. We don't want to have any loan, or loan is not the right word. Rinam is the right word, right? Rinam for all these. We want to make sure that whatever we have taken, we give back in some way. Even teaching is a way of dhanam, because we have learned and we have benefited from this knowledge. We must give back, right? Gita, Upanishad, all of them, right? This is the first aspect, a sense of gratitude. And the second aspect is social harmony, right? Because it requires dhanam. Now, when there are very rich people and then there are very poor people, if we don't take care of the poorer people, then we can have, inequality in society, which can, increase the gap, and you could have other kind of issues like killing, right? Murdering, stealing, etc. Right? So it is also very important to share and for the social harmony itself. And finally, anyway, if we don't give away, right, we are just going to leave behind most of the wealth, right? If we can give it in charity and take care to the extent that we would like to do, it would really be very, very important. And that is why dhanam becomes extremely important, because for the social harmony also dhanam is critical. And an important aspect of dhanam is it need not be wealth. It can be your time. It can be your effort. Time in terms of listening to people, right? Spending time, understanding them or teaching them something. All of this also can be considered as dhanam, right? So the gift itself is so important. The gifting itself, the act itself will give you certain happiness. And of course, Krishna speaks about tamasa dhanam, rajasa dhanam, sattvika dhanam, etc. He says charity should never be done with pomp and show. And also it should not be done in a disrespectful way, because we should not make the other person feel bad about it. All these are talked about in the Shastras. So very, very important. And if we understand this early on, then our youngsters, we can actually ask them to do community service structured around these areas, rather than look for any other, kind of institution. We have this in our own religion, and I think we should proudly take this forward, right? So then the next one, these are all the external factors. Now a little bit about the internal factors. Verbal discipline, right? So verbal conditioning in terms of quantity and quality. Shankaracharya says, Vak tapas is the first step for spiritual pursuit. So yogasya pratamam dwaram mang nirodho parigraha. Nirasha cha nidhiha cha nityam ekanta shilata. He speaks about it quite a bit in Viveka Chudamani. Of course, Lord Krishna speaks about it a lot in Gita also. And a beautiful exercise is Maunam. Especially in these days, Maunam we can try not just without speaking. Away from internet, mobile, right, and TV. The three things. If you are able to even spend half a day, one day, it will give you so much clarity of thought, because your mind will finally start, focusing on what you need to do and what you have not done, etc. Today, we don't even have that kind of time, because we keep jumping from one thing to the other, right? So this is the first door to yoga, is what Shankaracharya says. And on the quality filter itself, right? In chapter 17, a very beautiful verse is there, which talks about the 4 filters, right, for the Vak, which is make sure you do not hurt, sensitize the mind to untruth, and speech itself must be pleasant, and it must also be good for the listener, right? Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyabhyasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate, right? These are very, very important 4 parameters. And when we actually pass our thoughts through this before we speak, one good thing that happens is we may at the end of it decide that we don't even want to actually speak that sentence, or that it is not really relevant for that person, right? And a lot has been talked about this, and because it becomes very, very important. Even if you're speaking the truth, it has to be priyam. So if you are speaking the truth and it is not priyam, You have to see how it can be made pleasant. Otherwise, you can keep quiet. You need not share the satyam, right? It doesn't say you should not keep quiet, right? It only says don't say lies, right? So very, very important 4 filters for Vak Tapas that Krishna gives in the 17th chapter, right? And when you observe these 4 parameters, generally you will not have anything much to talk, right? The noise pollution will come down, right? Because of these filters. Then we also have mental or thought discipline, right? Just as we have Vak Tapas, we have mental or thought discipline, mental conditioning program, because the mind is a very subtle instrument and it is not very easy to control the mind directly. So you have to first follow physical disciplines and verbal disciplines before you come to the mind, right? So we can practice various types of Manasa Puja, Japa, etc. before we practice meditation, and then you practice various types of meditation, and using the Sankalpa Shakti of our mind, you can actually shape the thought and destiny. Swamiji, in fact, uses the word TDS, thought displacement syndrome, right? He says the minute a negative thought comes, nip it off in the bud. If you, for instance, if you're a person, a lot of people have different problems. Some people get angry. Some people get jealous when they think of others, right? If you nip those thoughts in the bud itself, right? You don't allow it to grow, then, the mind is much more healthier, right? Very, very important. And therefore, for the mind discipline, all of these become important. Physical discipline, verbal discipline, then exercise for the mind, which is Manasa Japa, Puja, meditation, etc. Right? So, Mana Prasada is talked about in the 17th chapter again, and it is all these are said to be mental austerity, mental quietude, gentleness, silence, mind control, then purity of the motive, not saying something and having something else in your mind, right? That is very important, avoiding of the split personality. So as some famous quote goes, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. Right? So we can influence our destiny by having all these disciplines. So a very, very important aspect of the spiritual journey, which has got nothing to do with our ultimate moksha or anything. These are very practically useful when you're dealing with any of the Pancha Anatmas. Then the second one is values, right? A lot has been talked about values by Pujya Swamiji. This is Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati on developing values, how to do them, right? How to develop values through value meditation, etc. Right? How to convert the mind into a garden which doesn't have any weeds, mental gardening, right? Which involves planting, preserving, and nourishing moral virtues, right? And a lot has been talked, and there's a lovely book by Swamiji, which is actually called Value of Values. I did pick a few ideas from there, and I am actually presenting a few of the important values which are very useful here. So value is a value only when the value of the value is valued by you. Pujya Swamiji says this, right? And when I have a value, right, I should be aware that if I do something which is conflicting with that value, right, then I create a knower-doer conflict, right? I know that I don't want to, tell untruth. I want to be truthful, right? But then I start, playing some politics, which is not necessary at all somewhere, by, telling something about somebody. Then the knower-doer conflict, which is there in the mind, will produce extreme stress in the mind, right? Very important. Or let's come to something very simple. Early morning, I keep an alarm to get up 30 minutes early for exercises. So my mind has decided that I have to get up 30 minutes earlier. In the morning, my body does not support it and I don't get up, right? So there is a basic conflict between knowing and doing here, right? So we need to make sure that slowly we are aware of this and we improve on this aspect. right? So in values itself, I have only listed a few which are, I feel, important for a person who is very much active, right, in the society for grihastashramis. Amanitvam, which is humility, basically, simply. I'm not getting into, too much of the details now. Simplicity, humility, freedom from superiority complex is amanitvam. Absence of pretense or adambitvam. I know the minute I say amanitvam and adambitvam, people come back to me and say, no, it's not possible in corporate life. When it is time for performance management, it becomes very difficult. Only thing I will say is avoiding of the knower-doer conflict. If we claim something as what I've done, then to back it up with sufficient evidence or exact details as to what I did. And also, if it is, say, team performance, to make sure that we attribute it to others rather than just take everything onto ourselves, right? Not taking the entire credit to ourselves. That itself can be a form of amanitvam and adambitvam. Adambitvam is more showy at the physical level, right? Being flamboyant, etc., right? When it's not required. And then not hurting, right? Tolerance, very useful to develop tolerance, right? Now, tolerance is a virtue that helps us to avoid impulsive actions. So when you apply this anudvegakaram vakyam with those 4 filters and think, right, and be aware before reacting to situations, it helps us in developing this shantihi or tolerance. And then perseverance or dhritihi. So much can be talked about dhritihi, because without this, it's almost impossible to undertake any project and take it to completion. Whether it is in your child's life, whether it is, sitting with the child and making sure that he's educated correctly, directing him the right way, getting him to pursue a hobby, yourself pursuing a hobby, or doing any project in the corporate world, or taking up Vedantic studies in a systematic and consistent manner. Dhritihi is something so critical. Some people are blessed with Dhritihi. Some people need to pray to God and make a sincere effort to actually get this value into them. Very, very important value is Dhritihi. Self-restraint or Atma Nigraha is basically restraining the sense organs. In the chariot, if you see, if the reins have to kind of bring the horses to under control, the mind has to bring the sense organs under control. Atma Nigraha comes with years of, Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Very important. Basically, if I'm used to seeing serial every day at 7 o'clock, I should be able to tell one day, no serial, and I should not have any thoughts thereafter. Similarly, coffee. Similarly, any of these, any addictions one day, can I tell no and can I move on, right? That is Atma Nigraha, right? In simple terms. And then developing equanimity through all these means and values to any kind of situations and events in life. Whenever anything happens, able to maintain the equanimity amidst that, right? So these are some of the values. The whole lot of values are there in chapter 13 of the Gita, chapter 16 of the Gita, and Swamiji's book really talks about so many situations and events, and very nicely done. And very important, I've already talked about this, the different layers of the body have to work as a team. They cannot work as at cross purposes. Conditioning and integration is very, very important. So Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga must always go together with the values. Right? Now, we saw the Pancha Anatmas now. So how do we drive excellence through Karma Yoga? Right? So, and of course, being aware of the gunas. Right? Now, we spoke about the attitude, Ishwararpana Bhava, right? And Ishwara Prasada Bhava, etc. Now, Prarabdha keeps hitting us from all directions simultaneously when we are in the 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, creating career pressures, fear of job losses, rapidly changing technology, our children growing, adolescent issues, school college admission issues, the changing and liberalistic views of the modern generation. Now, handling all of this, right? If we do not have the Karma Yoga attitude to all of these, whatever we do our best, right? enjoying the process of bringing up the children, doing whatever best we can for them, and striving for excellence in whatever task we undertake, whether it is on the family front or in the office front, or making sure that we invest properly, all of that. But while doing all of that, not getting excessively obsessed with the result and dedicating the action to God and accepting the result, right? So what happens is anxiety and stress are avoided here, leading to more efficient way of working. And as I said, it prepares us for choiceless situations, as Krishna put it. Apariharyaha arthaha. He spoke about it, right? We get prepared for that. So there are always two types of actions: what I have to do and what I want to do. If we can just slowly convert, right, what I have to do to what I want to do, that helps us in removing much of the stress. And Karma Yoga attitude helps us here, right, a lot. Ishwararpana bhava, right? And of course, I'm going to skip this because of paucity of time. There is a difference in the motive between Karma Yoga and a desire. The red ones are basically desires and the green ones are Karma Yoga. So if you expand your mind to think big and in the larger interest, right, automatically the refinement of the mind also happens. The practical benefits, right, of these is you enjoy the work you do. You do your best as it is offered to the Lord. You work efficiently, but no anxiety with respect to the result, no expectation whatsoever, and mind is prepared to accept any result as you have given your best and you have enjoyed the experience already. Very, very applicable in terms of difficult projects that we execute, either in the home front or in the office front, whether it is the children whom we bring up. We spend so much time and energy. Let us enjoy the process of bringing them, right? And let us not expect anything in return. They must do it, because for them it is a duty, yes, to take care of parents with Riyajna. But from our side, let us have this emotional insurance or emotional kavacham, as we call it. Right? So this guna is another aspect that is talked about in Gita. I'm not getting into the details. There are 3 types of guna, it says, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Being aware of this also, right, as part of the journey, helps us in dealing with, actually, in choice of the career, in terms of how you compose your teams and manage your teams, even within family, how to be alert about who is having more of sattva guna, rajo guna, etc. And then it makes you aware of this and it helps you appreciate others' viewpoints also. So very useful to know about these, right? And we can do some things to change the sattva, rajo, tamo mix gradually through lifestyle improvement, our activities, discipline with respect to food, sleep, exercise, etc. And we can improve on values. Meditation is a very helpful way of, changing this mix, right? Now, the 4th aspect that the spiritual journey actually helps us in is, it satisfies fundamental questions around self, the world, and the God. Questions like, who created the world? When will it end? Is there an order of creation? Is there an intelligent creator? Who is God? Why are there so many gods in Hinduism? Why is Hinduism called a way of life? And who am I? Is there life after death? What survives death? Where does this jiva travel after death? And sometimes I feel I put in disproportionate effort and results don't turn out as expected. Why? Then I see a neighbor who is so bad, who does not get caught by the law at all. Why? And I've done so many good things, but why am I facing problems, right? So answers to all of these, fundamental curiosity gets answered through the spiritual journey, right? And the last aspect of this is what we term detached attachment, right? It is also through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga only, but a very, very important aspect which sets in as we really mature on the spiritual journey. You kind of do all the planning, goals, targets, identifying various things that we want to do, whether it's in our personal life, possessions, investments, all of this, right? We put our best foot forward in terms of available resources that can be committed to the work, etc. Deep physical and mental involvement, and being extremely happy about the way we go about it. But staying detached and being prepared or agnostic to any kind of result. Through this karma yoga attitude, Ishwararpana bhava, right? When you keep on saying everything is yours, I'm just offering it to you, this kind of mental refinement starts happening. What Swamiji also says is neighborization. That means any problems that come to the neighbor, we are able to say, oh, okay, it will happen. It happens, this will also pass. We will be able to say that about our own problems with respect to the Pancha Anatma. That is the direct benefit that comes out of this journey, right? And the measurable outcome, as Swamiji puts it, is in any emotional impact, right? You have FIR reduction, which is frequency of the impact, the intensity of the impact, and the recovery period of the impact comes down, and calmness, cheerfulness, and confidence increases. So, in the spiritual angle, the mental refinement actually helps us absorb the teaching very well. Jnana yoga, mental refinement, jnana yogyata, which comes through karma yoga and upasana yoga, leads us to jnana yoga. While we do that simultaneously, which was my talk today, which is in the material plane, we become a much better human being. We can take well thought out decisions. We can remain calm in a storm amidst rapidly changing environment, exactly like the eye of the cyclone. We can handle our next generation better. We can deal with our own old age, diseases, and death of near and dear ones, and the self much better. And as Krishna puts it, he defines Sthita Prajna, and he says, like, Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate nasa papena padmapatra mivambasa. Such a person is unaffected, right, by anything. It's like a water on lotus leaf, right? And how does that person actually work in society? Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tatvavit pashyan shunvan sprishan jigran ashnan gachan swapan shwasan kralapan visrajan grihnan unnishan nimishan napi. When he's seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, he remembers this attitude, right? And he just commits everything to the Lord. And then he says, I do not do anything at all. He remembers the higher teaching. Staying calm in the upheavals that life brings from time to time, remaining cheerful and bringing happiness to people around us, and living with confidence, however uncertain the situations are. Those are all the benefits that we miss out if we come late to this Vedantic spiritual journey. That is what we miss out. And we don't even understand till it's too late for us. And for the students who are slightly advanced, Swamiji puts this in these beautiful 5 Samskrita terms: Ajnana Nivrittihi, Samshaya Nivrittihi, Viparyaya Nivrittihi, Agata Nivrittihi, and Dakshata Praptihi. This is how Swamiji puts it. I wanted to put it in normal English, which we will all relate to, and that is why my presentation was in a different way. And just the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about was I did a quick survey, right, when I chose this topic amongst people I knew who were my students or who are Swamiji's students or who have just embarked on this. I did 2 kinds of survey. The first one was they came to Vedanta early in life, in early childhood or in college days. I asked them, how did Vedanta help you, right? And there was also somebody who was almost 80 who came to Vedanta very early, and how Vedanta has influenced him right through his journey. I tried to put them here, right? There are people who are young here, who are just 17, 18, and who are people who are in the 20s, 30s. You will see this common voice resonating, right? It's helped me in terms of adversity. It's also good because I'm able to offer support and contribute to my friends' emotional well-being. I'm able to stay calm. I'm at peace all the time, right? And I've gained hugely, right, through reduction and in intensity of desires, right? And a large degree of freedom from fear and a growing selflessness, right? And I'm able to take decisions that way, right? And this is from people who came to Vedanta late, 40 years and later on, right? Do they feel that they should have come earlier? And what is it that they feel, right? And this is what I got from them. So all this resonate, right, very clearly as to here is something that people are going to miss if they are not exposed early on in their lives. So that was my objective of this talk. And I just wanted to make sure that I leave these thoughts with you with two purposes. Maybe you have been alerted to something that you were not aware, or two, you are all Vedantic students and who have been grappling with this intense desire to reach out to the younger generation, to share with them. And today, maybe I've given you some pointers which you can take and talk to them during your leisure. I have given a lot of points. I think I also had this anxiety to share with all of you. So bear with me. Thank you very much. Let me just complete the... Yeah, situations do not change. Events do not change. People do not change. Our body and mind are subject to good and bad. Our response to these triggers is what changes during this wonderful spiritual journey. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Nitin, you can.
Thank you, Rama Sivaraman. It has been an excellent presentation. I could say that you have brought in essence, in a succinct manner, the entire aspects of life science, largely from text from Gita and some of the spiritual, Subhashitanis and all. It is definitely an eye-opener to people who are new to this, to try and pursue these studies. Only one or two doubts I have. I'm very gratified to note that you say from your presentation that people at the age of 17 and 20 are also into this, and they have experienced the different kind of handling the situations through the study of this, which has impacted them, which is very nice thing to know. But when you say the karma yoga, which I have heard from Swamiji's talks and many lectures and many teachers and also, but in a materialistic situation, what we are placed in, although yes, we have to accept this. There is no choice. If the results don't come to it, but supposing somebody is trying to pursue in your own Indian context, I can say many people at the age of 12, they start working for IIT entrance. And as you know, at the end of the day, many don't get anywhere near there. But that acceptance might come. But at the same time, can we say that even they should not even go into that kind of situations where the uncertainties are greater, and when definitely when you are expecting something, that doesn't happen, so your disappointment is also likely to be there. You can forcefully bring it on you, but is it possible? One. Number two, basically people have a misconception. You have brought largely from Gita, which is very good life science, which we have to follow as a gospel. But when we listen to Upanishads, largely we say this Sariram, Atma, all these kind of things, which is very even difficult to comprehend. What is that kind of Vedanta from this kind of Vedanta what we spoke now? So this you can just briefly tell about this.
Sure.
And
yeah. See, a very important aspect, as Swamiji puts it, is we must, especially for the younger generation, I think the focus has to be on Bhagavad Gita and not on Upanishads immediately, because Bhagavad Gita is very ideal for focusing on Karma Yoga, right? And coming exactly to this discussion on IIT, right? I think it is very important as parents, and I've gone through this experience, so I can speak to you about it. It is very important for the parents and the children to enjoy the journey of preparing for IIT. It is not the end. That is what we have to be very careful. When they are preparing, there are lots of side benefits. So that Karma Yoga, saying, please do your best, prepare well, plan well, make sure that you are doing your best. You're writing your exams, you're doing your milestones, checking hard way. Exactly, the Karma Yoga way of working, whether you choose to use the word Karma Yoga or not is, depends on the child. Now, even in the same family, you can expose the child to Karma Yoga, but one child may be okay, another child may not like it, right? But this becomes very, very important. So, according to me, in the younger ages, I think Bhagavad Gita is the best book for children to get exposed to, especially Pancha Mahayajna, because I feel very sad when I'm giving you example for this Ivy League admissions, we use community service. Why can't we do the community service around Pancha Mahayajna is the thought that I had when I was getting exposed to that aspect of my journey. See, when I'm talking about Pancha Anatma, I'm talking about my own experience also with all the 5 aspects, right? That is right.
Okay, very good. So, Nitinji, can we conclude with this?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So we would like to extend our sincere thanks to Rama Sivaraman for kindly accepting our request to deliver this talk, and which has been an excellent presentation, I can say. And those who have listened will definitely will benefit from this talk, and they can also, it will be on YouTube, so they can tell others to listen, so that it becomes a motivation. What I would say is, like, see, these are all this gist she took from Gita. So like we do morning Suprabhatam and morning Pratapsparniya Stokam, somebody should note down all this in every family and put it on the system or on a wall. So every day we go through this so that it comes into our system by over a period of time. And so we slowly start practicing these things. Such a beautiful course she has brought from Gita, which are all ever useful to us in our life. And it should sink into our system. So that's the best way to do that. So again, I thank Rama Sivaraman and Nitin Ji for your kind support, and Manoj Ji for the back end support. I look forward to working with you for many more such talks. I hope such presentations will help the listeners in getting more closer to the Vedantic studies and getting enlightened to a peaceful and happy life. Thank you very much. Thank you again, all of you.
On the behalf of entire Advaita Academy, I thank you, Ramaji, for doing this talk. It was wonderful. And viewers, follow us on our Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And we have a Facebook discussion group as well. Please check that out as well. And subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos and live sessions and recorded lectures and everything. Shri Guru.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.